Back to the second broadcast of the day to Chef AJ Live. I have a fabulous guest for you, and I'm sure you have heard of him because he is a New York Times bestselling author after all. And he is going to talk about mastering diabetes, both his, yours, and anyone else's. He is the co-author of this wonderful book, Mastering Diabetes. The other author, Cyrus Khambatta, I interviewed about 10 days ago. You can find that interview on YouTube. It was fabulous. And we are here to talk all about his favorite subject, fruit and starch and everything. So please welcome my friend. I've known you for 10 years now, Robby Barbaro. Thank you so much for being here.
It's really an honor to be on your show here today, Chef AJ. I mean, you are a true OG in this whole field. So it's just great to be here.
All right. Well, you're going to bust some myths because that's what you do.
You're exactly right. You couldn't have said it better. This is my favorite thing to talk about in the world: fruit, high carbohydrate whole foods, and diabetes and blood glucose management. I mean, let's talk about it.
Well, we're going to get right in with the question that we just talked about, and this is sent in by Grace. And I appreciate when you guys send in the questions in advance, because when you post here, the feed goes really fast, and I sometimes miss it. So she said, "Can you please ask a question to Robby? My question is, can you please talk about the glycemic index and whether it is important and necessary to follow, useful, or even relevant? Does eating lots of high glycemic carbohydrate-rich foods like white potatoes and watermelon, for example, as part of a low-fat, plant-based whole food diet like you recommend, cause spikes in your blood glucose and insulin levels, cause your beta cells to burn out, and increase your risk for developing insulin resistance and diabetes over time? I've been hearing this a lot, and I'm very worried and scared of eating these foods I love." I apologize for the long question, Chef AJ, but after hearing some people in the plant-based world, not going to name names, talk about how unhealthy it is to eat white potatoes, I'm really scared to eat them. I don't want to increase my risk of diabetes, dementia, and cancer. Thank you for asking my question. Well, there have been days where I've eaten 3 pounds of white potatoes, so what can I tell you?
This is such a fun place to be having this conversation, because I have a warm audience with you, but also such a living, breathing, perfect example with you here to help illustrate this point. But it's a great question, and we wrote about that in the book for sure. We have all, a bunch of research we cited on the topic, but it's really good to be able to go into more detail on a situation like this, because there are a lot of nuances, and you can't cover every little nuance in a book. You got to really get the general stuff here. So the particular, okay, foods like watermelon and white potatoes, okay? Now, first I'm going to talk about type 2 diabetes and pre-diabetes, because that is the majority of people living with all forms of diabetes. Okay, we're talking 95%. And the bottom line is, eating those foods, watermelon, white potatoes, okay, those are some of the highest foods on the glycemic index. That is true. Now, but it's important to note that of all the foods that we're recommending in the Mastering Diabetes method, our green light category, they are either medium or low. There's only a few exceptions. Watermelon and I think pineapple might be the 2 exceptions that are actually at the very low end of being high. So let's start there. But more importantly than the glycemic index is, what is your level of insulin sensitivity when eating that food? Okay, so if somebody is seeing a spike in their insulin levels, or they're seeing a spike in their blood glucose levels, it's not the watermelon's fault. It's not the white potato's fault. It's what you ate prior that has put your body in a state of living with insulin resistance. And that's what this entire book is about. Okay, the subtitle is "The Revolutionary Method to Reverse Insulin Resistance Permanently in Type 1, Type 1.5, Type 2, Prediabetes, and Gestational Diabetes." So this whole premise, everything about the Mastering Diabetes method, is bringing it back to one concept, which is insulin sensitivity, and that applies to all forms of diabetes, and that is at the root of this question that's being asked. So we cited over 100 years of research. This book has 800 plus scientific references, and when you dig into the research and really study what do we know about low-fat diets and human beings? What do we know what happens when an actually truly low-fat diet is fed to humans? And when I say truly low-fat, I'm saying a maximum of 15% of calories coming from fat. And this has, again, been studied back to the 1920s. And there's a research study in 1971 published in the New England Journal of Medicine. Dr. Brunzell compared a sugar water diet to a standard diet of about 40% of calories coming from fat. So he literally fed patients 85% of calories coming from dextrose, 15% of calories coming from protein. This is a liquid diet. There's no fat because it wasn't whole foods. You can't devise a diet that has no fat unless you have refined foods, because all foods contain essential fatty acids. That's right. Lettuce, beans, potatoes, watermelon, pineapple, farro, millet, quinoa, bell peppers, whatever. All whole foods contain small amounts of essential fatty acids. When you eat enough, you meet your requirements. If you want an insurance policy, you can add in chia seeds and flax seeds. But the point here is he devised a 0% of calories coming from fat diet. He fed them, he did both groups, got to experience both diets. And he found that the sugar water diet had a lower level of insulin production and lower blood glucose levels at every single point in a paired oral glucose tolerance test. That means that the subjects were given 75 grams of glucose, and their blood glucose values and insulin levels were tested every 30 minutes for 3 hours. And at every single point in that test, the sugar water diet had a lower insulin level and a lower blood glucose level, meaning that their insulin sensitivity improved. And then when you're eating something like potatoes and watermelon, you're getting a bunch of fiber, you're getting a bunch of nutrients, you're getting micronutrients that interact in a way that we will never even comprehend. So that's just one study. There are many, many more. The point is, we have repeatedly shown that when you actually eat a truly low-fat diet, you improve your insulin sensitivity, and then you can tolerate, you can metabolize foods like watermelon and potatoes. Now, since I'm living with type 1 diabetes, and so is Cyrus, my co-founder here and co-author, it's worth it to go into some nuances of type 1 diabetes. If you're going to consume something like watermelon or white potatoes living with type 1 diabetes, you have to focus on your insulin timing and the foods you are going to eat with those foods, okay? So people need to take a step back and understand. When we're talking about insulin-dependent diabetes, the game that we're actually playing here is mind-bogglingly difficult, okay? Your pancreas, Chef AJ, produces the perfect amount of insulin that's just ready to fire 24/7, small micro doses adjusting throughout your day as you move, as you eat, when you sleep, when you're stressed, like all these micro actions. It's fascinating. People living with insulin-dependent diabetes, we inject insulin in correlation with how many grams of carbohydrate we're consuming. And we factor in protein, we factor in exercise, and a lot of other things, but mainly it's insulin to total grams of carbohydrate being consumed. And we, inject like a bolus of, 5 units or something. And then that works, has like a peak at maybe 3 hours and it slowly comes down. Like, it's a completely different game. It's a miracle that we ever get it right. It really is. If we're trying to do something that a normal, healthy human pancreas does in this magical, wise way that's beyond our comprehension. So you have to understand with that fact, and this accounts for people living with insulin-dependent type 2 diabetes as well. If you're using fast-acting insulin to manage your blood glucose levels, like this is your Bible. This is your Bible that's going to give you every little nuance you need to do. But insulin timing matters, okay? So if you're trying to avoid, injecting a large amount of insulin, that particular piece of this equation is 100% dependent on your insulin sensitivity. How much total insulin you will need for the watermelon is going to depend on what you've eaten prior and your activity prior. And did you incorporate intermittent fasting? Did you incorporate elements of the master diabetes method to become more insulin sensitive? Now, to see a blood glucose spike, how high your blood glucose goes is completely dependent on your ability to time the insulin injection properly. If you inject insulin and then you go and eat some watermelon right away, you're going to see a spike. And it wasn't the watermelon's fault. And it wasn't even your insulin sensitivity's fault. Okay, that's not the issue there. It's the fact that the insulin isn't working. It takes 10, 15, 20 minutes for insulin to do anything. So if I went to a type 1 and I said, look, here, don't take any insulin, eat this watermelon. They're like, oh yeah, I'm going to spike. I'm going to go super high. Like they get it. That's obvious. But the same thing is happening repeatedly with people who don't understand the importance of insulin timing and making sure the insulin is working before they start putting that food in their mouth. The insulin needs to be driving your blood glucose down. Like the guideline we have is 120 and going down based on a finger stick, not a CGM, because the CGMs are delayed. Based on a finger stick, you know your blood glucose is going down, then you can eat a high carbohydrate meal. And in addition to that, as you're gaining insulin sensitivity, combining these carbohydrate-rich foods with greens and non-starchy vegetables is going to impact the absorption rate. So you can control that intelligently, not omitting these foods. Just avoiding, these carbohydrate-rich foods is not the solution. That's not what you want to do. You want to maximize your insulin sensitivity in the long term, and in the short term, you want to combine them with other healthy, nutrient-dense foods in order to slow the absorption as you're gaining insulin sensitivity. So I know that was a long answer, but I wanted to cover the basics there.
Could you repeat that? I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, but I love the way you and Cyrus explain this, and what you explain, it's like that even some doctors don't seem to understand.
Unfortunately, yes. I mean, honestly, there are a lot of nuances. Yes, and we're happy to share them, and hopefully doctors can learn from this, and then they can then pass along the knowledge to their patients.
I think if they're diagnosed with diabetes, before they agree to take any medication, they should give their doctor this book.
There you go. I agree.
So when you say 15% of fat, what does that look like in the real world? Because, your Mastering Diabetes diet and my Ultimate Weight Loss diet, it's like, I don't see very much, if any, difference, because what you call green light foods, I call to the left of the red line foods. What you call red light foods, I call to the right of the red line foods. And what you call yellow light foods, I call purple foods, because I should have done yellow, but I love purple. So what, in your opinion, does 15%, because I don't measure anything, how much I weigh, how much I eat, or how many grams. I mean, I was thinking of putting it into Chronometer now, just out of curiosity. But do you tell people to just eat the food and there's enough fat in it, or do you tell them, oh no, you got to add those nuts and seeds or you'll drop dead?
Okay, so to be clear, we want our clients who are living with pre-diabetes and non-insulin dependent diabetes to get to a place just like you, Chef AJ. We want them to never think about counting calories, never think about having to count fat or anything. Just eat healthy, delicious, nutrient-dense foods that they enjoy. That's the place they can get to. Not have to take diabetes medication anymore, not have to think about their A1C, just live life. Now, if you're living with insulin-dependent diabetes, you're injecting any form of insulin, the element of tracking your food and using a software like Chronometer becomes important so you can calculate your dosages properly. Now, this is one of my favorite graphics in the entire book. I'm not sure if people are going to be able to see it, but I'm going to explain it to you guys. So at the top of this page, you see a full day of eating. And the full day of eating has a banana, it has an apple, those are snacks, and then it has 3 recipes that are in this book, because the book has 30 recipes, and we have 2 21-day meal plans. The first meal is tropical fruit salad. That has 9 grams of fat. Curried red lentils over fluffy quinoa has 3.8 grams of fat. And greens and beans that has 1.8 grams of fat. Okay, so this entire day with the apple and the banana, and I want you to know that the tropical fruit salad has the most fat because our breakfast meal includes either a tablespoon of ground flax seeds or ground chia seeds as your essential fatty acids insurance policy. So that's why that's the highest fat meal of the day, and that's in all of our breakfast meals. But the point here is this entire day is 5 pounds 6 ounces of total food, and there's 15 grams of fat in the entire day of eating. Now, The bottom part of the, and just to tell you, so if you've read Chef AJ's material, if you're in her world, you understand the concept of calorie density, I hope. And you have heard her say that people eat roughly about 3 to 5 pounds of food per day, and that you get to eat more and weigh less. And just, it's the most factual, true statement the world has ever seen, and it works repeatedly. Eat more, weigh less when you apply this method. Now, on the bottom part of this page, there are 4 different foods. No, sorry. There's 9 different foods. 9 different foods here. The first one is olive oil. 1 tablespoon is 15 grams of fat. Sesame seeds, less than an ounce is 15 grams of fat. So literally less than an ounce versus 5 pounds, 6 ounces. That's the calorie density difference we're talking about here. A full day of eating all this food, you're going to fill up your stomach with all these nutrients and communicate with your brain about being truly satisfied, the water, the fiber, the nutrients, versus this tiny amount. Now, peanut butter, 1.8 tablespoons, 15 grams of fat. Almonds, 1.1 ounces, 15 grams of fat. And it goes on and on. Coconut meat, Swiss cheese, avocado, egg, salmon. The point is, very small amounts of either animal products, oils, nuts and seeds, or avocado is going to amount to a large amount of fat very quickly. And so what we're teaching here is about, to make it clear, is no more than 30 grams of fat per day. That's going to roughly land you around 15%. If you're a smaller person, then, and you don't eat that many calories, then 30 grams of fat might put you over. But we outline that in the book about what your fat goal should be based on your activity and how many calories you're consuming. But the way that you can achieve that 15% guideline, this is the simplest way, is to just understand that you can only have 1 serving of the yellow light foods per day. The yellow light foods are nuts and seeds, coconut meat, olives. We have avocado, and you can have a high fat food like durian or something would be in there. But these foods, mainly the main issue is the coconut meat, the nuts and seeds, and the avocado. That's what people are consuming a lot of. And when you realize you can only have 1 or 2 ounces of one of those, and you stick to that, then you eat everything else in the green light category, unlimited, all the fruits, all the starchy vegetables, all the beans, all the whole grains, non-starchy vegetables, leafy greens, herbs and spices, and mushrooms. You eat them in abundance, you will automatically fall under 15% of calories from fat without having to micromanage. So if you really just focus on just the yellow light things, then you're free to eat.
Nice. That's what I say.
Yeah.
Dina says, though, does too much fruit cause weight gain, particularly in the belly of a person that is whole food, plant-based, low oil, and slim otherwise? See, to me, low oil is not no oil.
There you go. Key point there. Key point. And, in our coaching program, we've had, well over 3,000 people run through it. And you've been doing this for so many years, Chef AJ. We know that when somebody, again, I'm not calling out this person, I'm just saying in general, when people say I'm doing it, and I'm not getting results, or it's not working, and we actually look at what they're actually doing, we end up finding some errors. And that could be one here. But in general, is it possible to gain weight eating fruit? Of course, it's possible. It's possible, but it's very difficult. It's very, very difficult because of the calorie density. And if you're doing it intelligently, and let's say you are a person who literally can eat pounds and pounds of fruit like I can, then you become cognizant of which fruits to focus on. There's a big range of calorie density in fruits. I just had mamey sapote for lunch today. Mamey sapote is more calorie dense than potatoes. Plantains are about the same calorie density as potatoes. Whereas food like raspberries or cantaloupe or papaya or mangoes are significantly less calorie dense. So you could focus on those in order to stay satisfied. But it's very difficult to gain weight eating fruit. It's very difficult.
Well, is it even possible, I wonder, though?
It is possible. There's no question. If you packed in a bunch of dates and you ate a lot of mamey, I mean, you can, I've seen it happen. It's possible.
But it's not easy.
It's not easy. You have to eat a lot of very calorie dense fruits.
Right. Tina wants to know if your book covers gestational diabetes.
So yes, the book covers gestational diabetes. I'm not going to say there's not like an entire chapter on that, but what the book does is it goes into mad detail about insulin resistance and then the connection that that has to gestational diabetes. So if you can address that, which is again the root issue, there are some hormonal issues going on with gestational diabetes. But when you address insulin resistance, you are addressing that issue.
Great. Well, Shalini says, my doctor tells me to lower my blood glucose. I need to reduce my carbs and definitely eat no fruit. So I'm posting that she needs to get this book for her doctor.
Please, please, please. And honestly, this is something I'm super passionate about, Chef AJ. This idea that I have to reduce my carbohydrates to lower my fasting blood glucose is so far from the truth. I cannot let that slip. And here's the thing. I want everybody to have the empowering experience of owning the truth. I don't want you to just do what I say because it's in the book or something, or I want you to do it because you do it for a long time. Like continue to do it because you own the truth and nobody can tell you any differently. When you pick up this book and you start to eat, you understand the science and you follow the meal plan, and literally within 7 days, 14 days, you start to see that you have eaten more carbohydrate than you've ever consumed and your fasting blood glucose is going down. You scratch your head and you're like, wait a minute, I now know the truth. Like, I don't care what anybody says on the internet. I don't care how many times I read somebody cite some study or say that carbohydrates, cause diabetes or cause insulin spikes and all that. Like, it's gone. Like you own the experience. So all I can say is you've got to pick up the book, but you got to apply it. You got to really, really do it. Make sure you are, getting to that point of lowering the fat intake properly. And then once you see the results, that's the beauty of diabetes, is that it's one of the most objective conditions. And there are very few chronic diseases that you can self-monitor on a meal-by-meal basis. You don't know if your heart disease got better or worse after one meal. You're not aware of your kidney disease improving or getting worse after one meal. But with diabetes, you eat one meal, you test yourself an hour after, 2 hours after, and you say, hey, look at my number. I'm 200. I'm 100. Like something happened here. So understanding why you see high blood glucose readings in the beginning is very important, because you got to really get to the root of why that's happening. And that's insulin resistance that's at the core of it. It's what you ate prior. It's not the white potato's fault. It's not the watermelon's fault.
I know. And it's funny that whatever it is, from diabetes to E. coli, somehow the plants always get blamed, don't they?
That's true. That's true.
Yep. So Carolyn wants to know, would you recommend all fruit smoothies for diabetics?
Okay. So when somebody is just starting out, that's a great question, but it's going to really depend on where the person is coming from. Okay. If you're telling me I got some person who's, very, very overweight, they're literally eating McDonald's for breakfast and Burger King for lunch and Pizza Hut for dinner, then of course a fruit smoothie is going to be a major step in the right direction. That's great. But if we're getting more into the nuanced details of somebody who's trying to do some refining and really coming into it in an insulin resistant state, problem with a smoothie is that you have increased the surface area of the food, all right? And that's going to increase the speed at which the glucose is absorbed, and that could potentially lead to some frustrating high blood glucose readings. It's possible. So chewing your food is really important. There's a lot that's happening in that entire process when you're chewing your food, especially when it comes to blood glucose management, not eating too quickly. That's ideal. Also, including greens and non-starchy vegetables with your fruit is very important in the beginning when people are more insulin resistant. So if you're going to make a smoothie, put some greens in there, put some spinach in there, put some lettuce, put some kale, put some Swiss chard, make it a green smoothie. So all fruit smoothie, I don't even consume all fruit smoothies. I mean, rarely. If I'm ever going to do that, I'd rather make some nice cream, take some frozen fruit, put it through like a Yonanas or something. And then that tends to be eaten a lot slower. So if you're going to drink a smoothie, drink it slowly. Drink it slowly. That's one thing you can do to improve your blood glucose profile.
Or maybe don't blend it as much so you're kind of chewing it a little bit.
Yes, that's a great tip. Great tip.
Yeah.
Yeah, and eat it with a spoon. Even if you did blend it completely and you liked it that way, that's fine. If you eat it with a spoon, you're going to definitely eat it slower.
Well, yesterday we had Dr. Jen Hawk on, and she was stuck in a hotel room just with her Vitamix, and she's posting on Instagram these cilantro banana smoothies. And I'm like, oh my God, that looks delicious. I don't usually drink smoothies, but it's 107. I'm like, God, cilantro banana, that sounds amazing. Yeah.
Put some ice cubes in there.
Yeah, but I do make the nice cream with the champion juicer, quite a bit, and I agree. It's just decadent practically.
Yes. Yes.
So when you freeze fruit, Kathy says, is water only fasting something you would recommend or discourage in addition to a whole food plant-based diet for a pre-diabetic?
I think going to a place like True North or working with I'm blanking on his name, the doctor who's in Southern California. You know him. Dr.
Nate Gershfeld, a former guest on this show a few weeks ago.
Can't recommend him enough. I recommend doing it with a qualified practitioner. So the answer is yes. Water fasting is fantastic when done properly.
That is terrific. Well, you had said earlier that it's possible for some people to maybe eat too much calorically dense foods and gain weight, but there's a question about, well, why don't nuts and seeds cause you to store fat? I've never heard that they don't. I mean, they're the highest fat plant foods there are. Absolutely.
I mean, eating excessive amounts of nuts and seeds is the easiest way to gain weight, simply because of the calorie density, and they taste so darn good. And it's very, very difficult to have a handful. It's very, very challenging for most people. If you're somebody who can do that, that's great. Most people cannot.
That's right. Absolutely. So I listened to you on the Raw Food Mastery Summit, and I believe it was on that summit that you said you eat something like 13 pounds of food a day. Cyrus eats 11. I thought I ate a lot at 8, and I used to eat 10 when I was trying to lose weight. One of the things we ask every guest, because people just are curious what they eat in a day, but what does that look like? I mean, because I've eaten with you, but maybe I haven't really paid attention to the breakdown. So I'm guessing probably mostly fruit, because if you just ate greens, you'd have to be a lot.
It's a lot of greens and it's a lot of fruit. I mean, I could try to do a breakdown, like a breakfast meal is roughly,
maybe go breakfast, lunch, dinner. I don't know if you eat snacks.
I mean, I could tell you what I'm eating today. I mean,
right, because Lentil Larry wanted to know how many calories you eat in a day. I don't even worry about calories. I'm just curious how because I can't imagine. I mean, I feel like I eat so much. I don't know how I would put in 5 additional pounds of food.
Yeah. So today I'm going to eat roughly like 2,700 calories. I already have everything planned out. So my breakfast today was 150 grams of romaine lettuce, 900 grams of cherimoya. So that's like 2 pounds of cherimoya right there. I had mulberries and cherries. So that's breakfast. So it's just fruit and greens. And then lunch, I had lettuce and I had mamey sapote. So that's just fruit and greens. Pre-dinner, I'm going to have wild blueberries. It's all prepared in my fridge. Mangoes, red bell peppers, scallions, and English peas, shelled English peas. I really like them. Then dinner is going to be red bell peppers, lettuce, more English peas, scallions, carrots, papayas, and oranges. And then I have some dates as a snack, like when I'm doing athletic stuff. And that's it. So it's very simple.
Does it take a long time to eat those big salads?
About 30 minutes to an hour. I could eat it quicker, but I wear a continuous glucose monitor, so I can see my blood glucose profile every 5 minutes. I get a new dot, and I know when I eat very, very quickly, I'll see it'll go up and then it'll come back down. So I've learned that it's actually healthier for my blood glucose profile and for just in general, eating slow, chewing your food, actually thinking about it, being in a good mental state is ideal. I'm don't think everybody does that. I don't do that at every meal, but I try to.
Thanks. So you are 100% raw, right? Because Misty says any carbs like rice or potatoes, that's all you eat is carbs.
Yeah, that's right. I lots of carbohydrates from the fruit. It is technically true. My diet is 100% raw, although it's just not something I emphasize. I don't think it's that important. I think what's important for people is to eat green light foods that they enjoy, that they love. And I just happen to have this affinity for fruit, which I cannot explain. I cannot control it. I don't know. It's just deep inside me. I love fruit. I happen to live in a place where I have incredible access to the world's best fruits. If anybody watches my Instagram story and see, I post what I'm eating pretty much every day, every meal. It is, I am so blessed. It's unbelievable. And I really wish this for more people. I only have so many hours in the day. I can only fulfill so many missions, but if I could clone myself, I'd be out there spending a lot of time planting fruit trees and teaching the world how we can have access to, lower income groups of people can have access to these food if there was communication and teachings about how to grow your own food. Like, we could grow so much fruit on urban agriculture, urban gardening in Southern California. I mean, it's such a missed opportunity. It drives me bonkers. But the point is, I have access to great fruit. I love it. And this person is correct. You're right, Chef AJ. I eat a lot of carbohydrate energy, but it's whole carb. Every single one of these meals, nothing was blended. Nothing. Maybe I'll make a sauce here and there, but no sauce today.
All so that is you don't generally put salad dressings on your salads then?
Rarely. I cut up the tomatoes, the mango, the bell peppers. Those foods have enough juice in them that when you cut them all up, it looks like there's a liquid on it, but there's no dressing added.
Well, did you always like fruit even before you became vegan?
No, not. When I was growing up and my parents were following the endocrinologist guidelines, I went to the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. I've been living with type 1 for 20 years now. So when I went to the endocrinologist at the Mayo Clinic, I had a dietitian there, I had a psychologist and an endocrinologist. And the dietitian would teach us to follow the food pyramid. And my parents did the best of their ability to follow it and made sure that I had fruit at every meal. And it was very important to have fruit after my dinner. Like, it was just a religion in our house. And the fruit I would eat was canned mandarin oranges. And if I had strawberries, I would put powdered sugar on top. And in the summer, maybe we'd have watermelon. That's literally all the fruit that I can ever imagine having growing up. I don't think I ever had a mango until I started this low-fat, plant-based whole food diet in 2006. So I was not into fruit. My family wasn't into fruit. It's just something that once I became exposed to, I got excited about.
Karen wants to know, do you ever eat potatoes?
I personally haven't in like 13 years, but I wouldn't be opposed to someday down the road. If I want potatoes, I will eat potatoes.
Right. And do you eat dried fruit? Jan wants to know.
So every once in a while, I will have some dried figs. I do consume dates, but I don't consider them a dried fruit. Dates are a whole food that happen to be very low in water content.
Right. So, when I was listening to the Master in Diabetes Summit, which ended yesterday, and it's going to be replayed soon. No, I was really inspired to eat more raw food, especially because it's like 107 here, and soups aren't quite as appealing. But when I did it, I didn't do it the way you did it. I did it in a more calorically dense way because I just felt I couldn't eat enough fruits and vegetables. And since I wasn't eating starches, then that's how I got into the tahini, the avocado, those really high fat foods, which is why I remained obese. So how do you eat that much volume? And is that what's giving you satiety? Because I think of you every day, like when I eat my salad. Like this happened, I asked Charles, last night I was eating a salad, delicious chopped salad with everything in it. And yes, I did use a dressing and I'm eating it and it's good. And then at some point I said, I gotta put some rice in here. I'm so hungry. I'm really wanting to know, how do you get satiety? Is it because you eat such large volumes or?
So I think it's a really important question. And trust me, after again, having well over 3,000 people go through our coaching program, tens of thousands of people, watching our summits, going through our emails, buying our book and all that stuff. To me, it has been fascinating to see how many people actually don't want to eat exactly the way I eat. And what I've realized is it's just like, I'm an anomaly. Like my enjoyment and desire of eating these gigantically large bowls is rare. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Like your experience is much more in alignment with, in my experience, of natural human desire, of wanting to have that little bit, the potatoes, the rice, the farro, the millet, the quinoa, stuff like that, to stay satisfied. And people just, they don't want to eat these large meals. It's like too much. For me, I don't know what it is. I enjoy it. I guess I think my stomach has expanded over time. It's like a muscle. Your stomach can expand and contract, like definitely like a muscle. And I don't know. I just enjoy it, and I eat when I'm hungry till I'm full. I don't really think about it that much. I guess I just sort of like dialed in a routine. When you're living with type 1 diabetes, you sort of learn to be consistent. You try your best to do your activity at a similar time. You try and eat breakfast, lunch, snacks, and dinners at a similar time. It just makes life easier.
I think that's true for everybody. Personally.
Yeah, for sure. You don't want to, it's also, you want to be careful not to like restrict yourself. Cause like if it's 8 o'clock at night or something and my friend's like, hey, let's go play some basketball, I'm not going to be like, oh no, I have diabetes and I only exercise in the morning. It's like, that's silly. I'm going to go play basketball. I'm going to eat some dates or something beforehand and play some basketball. So you want to have that enjoyment of life and flexibility and to do some things spontaneously. But in general, I have just somehow, some way enjoy these large meals, and they keep me satisfied, and I just keep doing it. But
no, I really want to learn, because when I think about the way you eat, I like fruit, but it's not my favorite category because it's sweet. The thing that's funny, because the thing that I don't like about fruit is it's too sweet. I like savory. So could a person ostensibly eat like you, but have it be more savory instead of being sweet?
That's a good question. It would be difficult because you could make really savory dinner meals. And you can make some sauces and use some herbs and spices and then tweak things a little bit for dinner time. But it's hard to imagine getting enough calories. I don't know what fruits would be considered savory. You know what I mean? Like the foods where you get if you're going to do a fruit-based diet and you're going to try and get calories from fruit, you're going to have to eat sweet things. I mean, maybe you could make a plantain dish that's savory or something if you added in, I don't know. I'm not as much of a culinary expert as you are, Chef AJ.
Yeah. Monica wants to know, how old were you when you got type 2 diabetes, and how old are you now? And just I want you to know, people are saying that you look so young. Some people are guessing that you're 12. Some people are guessing a teenager, and some people are guessing 25.
Oh, that's very kind. I appreciate that. I was diagnosed when I was 12 years old, just about to turn 13. It was January 26th of 2000. So if anybody, and I've been living with type 1 diabetes for 20 years. So if you want to do math, you just figure out that I'm 32 years old.
Nice, nice. Monica says, how do you feel about eating cocoa?
I think so. If you're going to try and get a chocolate flavor into your life, I think the most ideal form is carob powder. I think cocoa has caffeine. Am I correct, Chef AJ?
Oh, absolutely. Caffeine and theobromine. That's why Goldhammer puts the kibosh on it.
Yeah. So that's why I'm like, yeah. So I think I don't think it's ideal. During the writing of this book, I did do a lot of research on coffee and caffeine. If you look in the peer-reviewed literature, depending on how the coffee is prepared, and I assume it'd be the same for this substance that they're asking about, I'm sure there's some nuances. It's not that bad. Like, I think when people ask questions like that, I think it's important, and I think people should get guidelines and have clarity. But like, don't get lost in the minor details. For a majority of people, for the public health perspective here, if somebody's, whether they're having coffee or having they need some cocoa or something in order to stay on this diet at large, like, go right ahead. You know what I mean? Like, don't worry about these minor things. Like, what do you do overall? This is not about perfection. It's not about being like Chef AJ or me every day. Like, we have achieved a certain level because, we have that desire. It fits our personality. We can do it. That's not going to be most people, and that's okay. You get to make decisions based on your goals. That's all it is. It's like, this is a journey, a conversation between you, yourself, and just you. Okay. Like, it's not about comparing yourself to other people. It's about making progress in your own life towards your own goals. So I don't want people to get all, worried about caffeine when they're still eating McDonald's or something. There's bigger things to change. There's bigger issues to address, and you can make slow changes over the years.
Yeah, we would say bigger fish to fry, but we're vegan, so we
That's right. That's
we
right.
don't use that saying. And Carol, every guest I have on, we get this comment: his skin and complexion look so healthy. And I got to tell you, it's the fruits and vegetables. I swear, guys, that really is our makeup secret. Misty wanted to know. I'm pretty sure I know the answer, at least for the first half. If you eat peanut butter and nuts, I'm pretty sure you don't eat peanut butter.
Do not eat peanut butter. I've not had peanut butter in 13 plus years. I will have nuts occasionally. But you know, I do have Brazil nuts in my freezer, and I've been doing a good job lately of like not eating too many of them. Apparently I've overcome that. But in the past, like if I have a bunch of nuts in the house, it's easy to eat too many. So, I actually went many years with 0 nuts and seeds and 0 avocado. I don't think it's necessary or required. It's not a requirement. But if you know, each person's got to get to know themselves and how much they can handle, what's good to put in their own home environment, what can make the situation safe or unsafe for them. Don't tempt yourself if you don't have to. But the answer is very like no more than once or twice a month am I going to have nuts and seeds right now.
Right. Well, I've gone 8.5 years without nuts and seeds and avocado. And thanks to you, I know Dr. Rick Dino now, who analyzes my omega-3 fatty acid blood tests and says they're almost as good as yours.
That's fantastic. I didn't realize you've been 8.5 years without even an avocado. Good for you. That's cool. You stick to it.
It's a trigger food for me. And even Brazil nuts are a trigger. No, I don't avoid chia seeds, but I put them in salad dressings, but I don't like wake up every day worrying about whether I've had nuts or seeds. You know,
yeah, that's great.
I can sleep at night.
I
That's
love it.
terrific. So going back to the raw diet, because we do get questions about people wanting to be high raw or maybe even all raw or try more raw. Joy says, what advice do you have for people eating raw vegan in winter? Because you live in Santa Monica where, you know, it's pretty nice all year round.
Very nice. Absolutely. So number one, I know you already addressed this, but I'm going to say it again, is like, because I was deep in the raw food world. I mean, I know that community. I know some of the psychology around that. I just cannot emphasize enough that like during the winter, if somebody wants to add some soups, some potatoes, some like, you know, cooked food, please do. Like, please don't have this fear around cooked food. So let's just set that aside. But let's say you understand that, you have that knowledge, and you just want to eat more raw. I don't have a great answer other than the fact that when I've been in cold environments, I mean, I grew up in Minnesota, I lived there for 14 years. I've visited plenty, you know, quite frequently. You know, we use most of the time when we're eating our meals, we're in our homes that are kept at a decent temperature. So just eat normally, wear appropriate clothing, keep your house at a solid temperature, and just eat your normal meals the same way you would in the summer. I mean, I don't know what else to say.
Yep. And so there's a question about people that have like GI issues, particularly things like Crohn's disease, where they can't physically digest large volumes of raw fruits and vegetables. What advice for those people?
Okay, so for those people, I'm not an expert in that area, and I can't say I've worked with many clients and have a bunch of experience in what to do there and how the medications work. I would work with a plant-based doctor. I would, you know, whether that's True North, whether that's Dr. Gershfeld, whether that's Lori Marbus. She has a brand new telemedicine practice, which we could not be bigger fans of. She is just such a wonderful doctor and just a great spirit and so knowledgeable. It's called PlantBased Telemedicine. I think
PlantBased Telehealth. And
Telehealth, that's it.
Her. She's on my channel, guys. You can see the interview from a couple.
Excellent. PlantBased Telehealth. Google that or just type it in, plantbasedtelehealth.com. And I believe she's covered now in over 40 states, and she's bringing on some other, you know, qualified doctors that she approves who completely understand lifestyle medicine to get all 50 states covered. And her practice is incredibly affordable, and they're going to give you the proper guidance and proper medical care and testing to handle such a nuanced situation.
Yeah, and if somebody lives near Washington, D.C., there's the Barnard Medical Center, and
Yes.
he does telemedicine in about 5 different states now.
Excellent.
So we should have everybody covered. This might be the answer to the next question from Debbie, what you just said, but I'll read it. If you're successful in reducing your blood sugar through a whole food, plant-based, no oil lifestyle, what is your recommendation What is your recommended process for breaking down on meds, assuming someone is taking more than one diabetes medication? I'm going to refer her also to your book by typing in it again.
Yes. So fascinating question. You're right. It's the same answer. We recommend you have to communicate with your doctor for sure. If your doctor is not supportive and maybe isn't interacting with you in the way that, you feel helped, that you're looking for, then Lori Marbus or the Barnard Clinic, they're going to be able to help you. And literally, Dr. Marbus, we send her clients all the time. She's texting with them. She's using the patient portal to really stay on top of her patients, because she knows that if they're not careful and there's not constant communication, they will be over medicated. The program, the Mastering Diabetes method, works too well. It works so well that you can put yourself in a dangerous low blood glucose level. And we want to prevent that. So in our book, we have an entire chapter on medications. And we went through all the common ones and what they actually do in your body, what the side effects are, and we covered them in the order of danger. So fast-acting insulin is number one. That's the first medication covered, because that's the medication that can put you in danger the most rapidly. And then long-acting insulin. And then there's other oral medications that are dangerous when taken in too high a dose. Something like metformin is not that dangerous. You're not going to kill yourself taking too much metformin while you adjust this diet. But there's other medications you can. So you got to communicate with your doctor. Anytime you're on these medications and your fasting blood glucose is below 100, it's time to communicate with your doctor and figure out, is it time to cut back? And I also think it's really important for people to understand that communicating with your doctor and doing everything you can to be conservative with your medication use is the safest and healthiest thing you can do. And I want to emphasize the healthiest component, because using medication and having lower blood glucose readings does not result in better health outcomes. Just so using medication to lower your blood glucose is different than using lifestyle to lower your blood glucose levels. So if you're temporarily riding a little bit higher with less medication, you're actually putting you're healthier. You're actually reducing your chronic disease risk. You're improving your metabolic health while you're going through the transition. So be conservative and communicate that with your doctor. Read that research, which we've covered in the book, so you understand that, again, high blood glucose that's just a symptom. We're addressing the cause, which is insulin resistance, while you're adopting the Mastering Diabetes method.
Nice. Stephanie wants to know if you drink any herbal teas or hibiscus, and Violet says, do you recommend any juice, or do you just drink water?
All right, I have to get something out of my fridge here. I drink this. I'm drinking it every morning. Amla green hibiscus. Okay, it's a tea. And it's actually something that Cyrus and we've actually created this. And this is a funny story, but we would have people in our coaching program in the early days, and they would do everything right. Perfect. Like, we believe it, we saw it. And sometimes their cholesterol is just a little bit higher than they want. It just wouldn't budge, but they're doing everything right. Like, you know what? Let's try this Amla stuff that we've heard about through Dr. Gregory. We heard about it also through some other Ayurvedic medicine people. We're like, you know what? Let's just try it. So we told people to go to Amazon and buy this Amla powder. And the stuff tastes awful. It is just absurdly bad. It's so bad. It's so sour, and it's bad. But people would do it and they got results. I'm like, wait a minute, why don't we make a tea? Why don't we add other things that we know are enjoyable that have things like hibiscus? This is the hibiscus version, and Amla, and see if it doesn't taste so bad. And we've done that, and people get amazing results. It's fascinating. We always tell people every time, this is not a magic bullet. It doesn't do anything. It's not that you can't expect results without fixing your diet. You have to fix your diet. This is an addition. Okay. This is a bonus. Amla green. And it's powerful stuff. So we recommend it. I use it.
And where can we get it? On your website?
Yeah, amlagreen.com is the website.
Oh, I'll have to try. Sounds good, actually. Thank you.
Fascinating.
So I think I might have misspoke, or at least what I'm trying to do is answer questions I know the answer to. And somebody asked if you ate legumes, and I said no, but then somebody pointed out you had peas. And so I guess peas are legumes, or?
Yeah, I ate sugar snap peas. I ate English peas.
Yeah, so,
So
okay. Very cool. Well, there were a couple of questions that I had that I was going to ask you regardless of what other people asked. And one of them just came up from Misty. And this is something actually we discussed. I interviewed you a while back just for kicks and giggles before you were like a big shot with a best-selling New York Times best-selling book when you were just Robby. And so Misty says, how do you handle when invited for dinner with friends? And this actually, I'm going to answer first and let Robby, of course, answer. But I love this question, Misty, because Robby is my hero in the socialization aspect of a whole food plant-based diet, because he's actually opened the door for me to be me. I think it's a little easier for him, one, because he's male and people just don't food bully as much with guys, and also maybe because he has a disease that people take seriously. But I can answer that question because the first time I invited Robby for dinner was January of 2011, along with Brian Wendell, the executive producer of Forks Over Knives, because I had a very special evening at my house with very limited participation. It was for Doug Lyle. And I don't remember exactly how it started, but I said, you know, and I guess I knew a little bit about him. Can I make you? He goes, no, I'm bringing my food. I go, well, I know how to make salad. I know. He goes, no, I'm bringing my food. And I'm like, whatever. And to me, I wasn't like, well, how dare you? Or that's so rude. In my mind, being, you know, Jewish and cheap, I'm like, well, I'm saving a lot of money on this guest. Let him bring his food. And I started doing the same thing to weddings, to bar mitzvahs, to Passover Seder. But I'm not diabetic. And so when you just say, well, I'm a recovering food addict, people don't take that seriously. But I admire what you're able to do. And if you want to just speak to it, to give us permission that it's okay to be Robby in social situations.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that evening, like clearly. I remember having great conversation with you and Dr. Lyle and Brian and I. Like, it was just, that was a beautiful night. I was so glad to be invited. For me, it's just an energetic thing. It's just this belief that every human has the right to eat whatever they want. That's your choice. That's just the way I look at the world. Okay, nobody should tell anybody else what to eat or how they should eat. And if there's certain circumstances where you want to take matters into your own hands and you want to bring your own food, or you want to eat beforehand and have like a smaller snack at the social situation, that's totally okay. That's totally up to you. And that's your choice. Like to make the interaction go smoothly is 100% on the energy that you're putting out. If you walk in there and approach the situation confidently and respectfully, and don't communicate in a sense of like, you know, like you don't know how to cook for me, or you're a bad chef, or like you don't want to say anything negative about what they're doing. It's just about taking ownership of what you're doing for yourself and doing it confidently, and gearing the conversation around things that we have in common. Like, just don't get lost in the conversation too deeply at a dinner party. Like, just move on, like talk about other things. And really just focus on why you're there and what you guys really have in common, what the connection is about, and don't get lost with that. But it's just this energy of like, it's okay. It's okay to take care of yourself in whatever way you feel is necessary. And obviously, yes, I have the example of, I mean, I'm living with type 1 diabetes. I can play the card of like, I measure it out, so I know how much insulin to take. Like, I have a lot of advantages that make it easier for me. But at the end of the day, it still just comes down to, you know, taking ownership of what's in your best interest, and just believing in that and standing strong.
Thank you. Wanda says, Robby is so sweet and honest. Carol says, right to eat what they want. A huge amen to that. Yeah, I mean, I don't even get why people have to be so offended, you know, right, when we don't, and it's not about them, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, and trying your best to like soften that and communicate that to them. But again, like, you're not responsible for their feelings. You're not responsible for how they handle the situation. All you're doing is you're trying to do what's best for your health and your body, and that's it. And like, you can't take responsibility for them.
Are you able to eat at restaurants? Because I don't enjoy it, because I find that you overpay for food that's not as good as yours in portions that are so minute that, I'm starving.
Yeah. So over the years, I've certainly been to many restaurant situations, whether that's like family dinners or celebrations, lots of business meetings, some things with friends, but mostly business and family stuff. And the way I navigate these situations is I either eat my primary meal beforehand or after. Sometimes I will bring it to the restaurant. Mostly I'm eating before or after. I just find it's the smoothest way to handle it. Um, and when I go to the restaurant, I order a simple salad. I order literally lettuce, tomatoes, and it might be that simple, like a 2-ingredient salad. And I actually enjoy that. I mean, my taste buds have come alive, and when I chew lettuce, I can taste the oil. Lettuce is actually a fairly higher fat food. And when you really chew it, you can like feel the oil in your mouth. It's fascinating. And plain tomatoes taste really good to me. I don't need a dressing. You could ask them for a lemon or lime or an orange if you want to squirt a simple dressing on top. But yeah, that's the way I handle that. I'm lucky in the sense that like I've cultivated a group of friends that really enjoy home cooked meals. So we do lots of bring your own dinners, BYOD, because we all have so many different like preferences and foods and what it's like. And sometimes we'll do potlucks, but lots of times it's really bring your own dinner and then maybe bring something extra. And for a lot of the reasons you just said, Chef AJ, as a group, my friend circle, we enjoy the flavors better of the food that we cooked on our own. It's less expensive. It's like we just enjoy that experience. I know a lot of people also enjoy the experience of being, going to a restaurant and getting served and chill. I get it. And if you are a person who fits in that category, there's more and more, healthier restaurants popping up. But I actually think learning how to go to any restaurant and order, potatoes, and steamed vegetables and beans, and learning how to order, a Mastering Diabetes friendly meal at any restaurant is a great skill to have. And bringing your own sauce can be the game changer. You put the sauce in your purse or in your bag or something. I carry around a little like bag all the time because I have my insulin kit and my dates in there. But if you can find a way, male or female, to bring your own sauce, and if anybody at the restaurant questions the sauce, you tell them that there's medicine in there. It's like, I have medicine in here, and then nobody's going to say anything. And then whatever plain veggies or plain potato you order, put your sauce on top, bring some spices with you. Like all of a sudden, you're having a meal that's very satisfying. So there's ways to navigate this to make sure everybody is happy.
Absolutely. Somebody asked what type of glucose meter you use, and you just gave me an idea. Is this something I could wear on the outside when people try to food bully me? And I'm like, sorry,
Okay, so this is a very great topic. I'm happy somebody brought it up. This was my most frequently used meter, which is a one-touch. This is a one-touch Vario Flex. That's what I used to use. And nowadays I'm using a Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitor. And I'll show you right now, my blood glucose is 117 right now.
that's my weight.
So this device, there's the two common ones are the Dexcom G6 and the Freestyle Libre. And these are continuous glucose monitors, and they're going to become more and more ubiquitous. And a term that you're all going to hear more and more about, and I want you to know that you heard first from me in Mastering Diabetes, is the concept of time in range. Time in range is going to supersede A1C in the world of diabetes. That number means more and tells you more about somebody's blood glucose control than an A1C does. And the reason is because, particularly for people living with insulin-dependent diabetes, you can have a roller coaster blood glucose control. You can be low a lot and then high and then low and then high. If you have enough lows, which are not healthy and not recommended, you can lower your A1C and it can artificially look good. But time in range is measuring the percent of time that you spend either below 70 between 70 and 180 or above 180, 181 and above milligrams per deciliter. Okay. So you can't hide from those numbers, because if you're reporting, your percent of being low, which you should not be above 5%. As a person living with type 1 diabetes, you should not be low more than 5% of any given period of time. Now, the diabetes experts have established that being in range, 70 to 180, again, for type 1, you want to be shooting for 70%. And then the rest, you could be high. Those are like their general guidelines, all right? I am experiencing a time in range of roughly 90%, low about 2% or less, and then the high is like 8%. So my experience, again, just an N of 1, we're going to be doing a lot more research on this over time, and is extraordinary. Published research, New England Journal of Medicine, like people's averages, people who are using a CGM and multiple daily injections like me, they're like 50%, 60% time in range. And everybody thinks, hey, if you do the Mastering Diabetes method, you're gonna eat all this fruit, your blood glucose is gonna go sky high, your insulin needs are gonna go sky high, your blood glucose variability is gonna be all over the place. And I'm here to be a personal example to say, no, that's not true. And we have an army of success stories who are showing the same thing, whether it's type 1 or type 2. And what's also happening now is a lot of type 2s are using the Freestyle Libre. That's a much more common device in that realm. And they're also seeing that their time in range is improving as they adopt the Mastering Diabetes method. They have less blood glucose variability while eating more carbohydrate and using less medication. That's what happens here. And that's all data that we now have because of continuous glucose monitors.
Nice. GS says, what app do you use with the Dexcom 6?
So the Dexcom 6, it comes with an app. So it comes with the Dexcom app. And then you can also download a separate app called Dexcom Clarity. The Dexcom Clarity app, that's where you're going to see your time in range reports. You don't see time in range inside the Dexcom app. So that reports gives you 90 days, 90 days, 30 days, 14, 7, and 2. So that's what you get. I use another app called SugarMate. SugarMate, SugarMate, SugarMate. And that allows me to see my blood glucose readings on my iWatch or Apple Watch. So I can easily monitor what the heck is going on. And it's a whole new world for anybody. I mean, I've been living with type 1 for 20 years. So I didn't see the dark ages. There were some dark ages where like there were no blood glucose meters. People were peeing on sticks. The needles were gigantic. They were reusing needles. Like there was a dark period. But I did live through the era of being dependent on pricking yourself. And now that we don't need to do that, it really is life-changing. It doesn't necessarily improve your A1C, which is something Dr. John McDougall likes to talk about, and he's actually right. It doesn't necessarily improve your health outcomes in and of itself, which is something the industry is trying to push, but it's not true. Your lifestyle is what changes that. But what these devices do, and I can speak from personal experience, is it just makes your life a little more convenient. It's just not, it's nice. If I want to know what my blood glucose is, to just go like that, boom, I have it in like less than a second, versus getting out the meter, pricking yourself. It's an added convenience, and it's nice. It also beeps at you overnight. So it can be a safety measure, especially for parents who have children with type 1 diabetes. So these devices can communicate with other people. You could see my blood glucose all day if you wanted to, Chef AJ. I could transport it to your phone or your iWatch.
Sounds like a fun thing for me.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, doctors are doing this. Doctors are doing this and helping their patients. So yeah, if you're going low overnight is a possibility. It's a true danger for people living with insulin-dependent diabetes. And the fact that the device will beep at you and wake you up or wake a loved one up it's a nice safety measure.
Do you talk about this in your book? People are asking the different apps and different.
So we read our own audiobook. Cyrus and I had the great opportunity to read our audiobook, and we actually got to do it at an amazing studio. Really, Penguin Random House gave us the red carpet treatment.
What studio did you do it in?
I'm blanking on this guy's name, but he said, look, Penguin Random House owns a bunch of studios in this city. They only send people to us when it's a big deal. And we're like, oh, wow, that's cool.
What city was it in?
It was, you know, the big mall, like the Beverly Center.
Wow.
It was right around there. And he was like, he did like, I don't know, super famous people, like big books.
Nice.
But anyways, it was a fun opportunity. The point is, in the audiobook, I added a little bit of extra material about time and range and a little bit of studies that I had found since the manuscript was locked. So this book in particular does not talk about the apps. So no.
Great. I'll combine these two questions because they're sort of similar. Carolyn says, how do you feel about snacking and eating multiple times a day versus 1 to 3 meals a day? Some physicians say it's not good to keep the pancreas working to pump insulin all day when snacking even a fruit. And Stephen says, do you agree with recent information from Dr. Greger about the same foods having higher response just by being eaten later in the day? And then somebody asked about intermittent fasting. They're sort of similar questions.
Yeah, it's a similar question. So I'm going to answer the first one separately. So if you're living with type 1 diabetes, type 1.5, or insulin dependent type 2, if you are taking fast acting insulin to control your blood glucose levels, I will tell you that snacking is a bit more challenging. It's just more challenging because now you're having more situations of overlapping insulin dosages. And remember, when you inject the insulin, it has a curve. It has a curve of working, reaching its peak, and then dying until you inject another fast-acting dose. And when you start overlapping those, it becomes a little bit more challenging to manage your blood glucose. I don't shy away from snacking. If I'm really adamant, personally, if somebody's hungry and they want to eat, and they want to eat some green light foods, go for it. Even if you're living with type 1, I'm just saying there's an added element of challenges and you should be cognizant of it. I think in that case, it might be better to learn how to eat more food at each meal so you're not so hungry in between. That could be a beneficial thing to work on. These are all the nuances we go through in our coaching program, whether somebody's in our large group or small group or private coaching. We're going to go through these nuances to make sure we dial it in for you. Now, in my opinion, when somebody joins our coaching program or starts doing the Mastering Diabetes Method, we wrote about this in the book, and if you're transitioning, you got to remember all these questions depend on where the person is coming from. Okay. If you're transitioning, you're just beginning this. I don't care what time of day you eat green light foods. If you're hungry and you were previously eating garbage processed foods and you have prediabetes and type 2 diabetes and you're overweight and you have insulin resistance, I don't care if you eat mangoes at 10 p.m. at night. Like, that is not the problem. That's actually going to be the solution. It's better that you eat those foods because you're hungry than you try and fight it off and then fall for some other cravings of things that you know you're not supposed to eat, that you know aren't getting you the results. I'd rather you just eat the green light foods whenever you want. Okay. That's as you're transitioning. Now you want to start talking about what's ideal. Everything's on a continuum, everything. Okay. Over here is you're eating McDonald's 3 times a day. And on the right is you live on your own permaculture farm and you're growing all your own food and you only eat fruit when you picked it off of tree and it was tree ripened and you grew your own greens. That's like this perfection. Like nobody's there. Maybe a couple people are, but most of us aren't. So it is absolutely true, Dr. Greger's research and this idea of eating foods later will lead to higher blood glucose readings. You want to live and eat closer to the circadian rhythm. That is well documented. That is for ideal results. No questions asked. But do you have to get to the ideal state in order to reverse prediabetes and type 2 diabetes and reverse insulin resistance and reach your ideal weight? You don't have to, but you could if you want to.
Nice. Monica says, when you go to places that say no outside food allowed, like theme parks or sporting events, are you able to still get it in by showing your glucose meter?
So yes. I tell people they should do this. Like, I mean, maybe it's not good to tell people to lie, but make up a condition of some sort. Yes, I legally can say I have diabetes. I'm living with type 1 diabetes, so I need this and I'm good to go. But if you say you have like a medical condition and your doctor has you on this specific protocol and you need your food or you need your devices, I'm pretty sure you can get away with it.
That's great. So I have a page earmarked in the book that I wanted to just read a couple sentences from, page 222. We have found that eating oatmeal can cause unwanted blood glucose elevations in people living with medium high or very high levels of baseline insulin resistance. The presence of intact whole grains also delays the rate at which glucose enters the blood. I get bashed a lot because I work with very specific population, people that are overweight, trying to lose weight, that suffer from food addictions. And I say, and I'm not talking to everybody, I just say for you, you know, rolled oats with bananas or rolled oat and fruit, it's not the ideal breakfast. And it's somehow I'm like anti-Esselstyn when I say that. But you have found too that it's not necessarily for all people the most perfect breakfast.
No question. I mean, I will stand by that statement all day, every day. Rolled oats are problematic. We've even found that steel cut oats can be problematic. Oat groats would be ideal, but even then, it still can be problematic. And there is individuality when it comes to making lifestyle change. And that's the fun part about it, I think, is that there's just so many different ways to do it. And I think anybody who's attached to eating, you know, whole grains for breakfast, this is a great opportunity to try some new ones. Get a chance. I mean, there's so many. You could have farro for breakfast. You could have quinoa for breakfast. You could have millet for breakfast. There's other intact whole grains that can taste amazing, that can be enjoyable. Use it as an opportunity to welcome in some new foods.
I love it. Thank you. Monica says, how has eating this way helped your disease?
So growing up, I had cystic acne, which was really frustrating. And that's not fun to have as a teenager in high school. My mom would take me to the dermatologist and I would get laser treatments, microdermabrasion treatments, take pills, take creams. Eventually they put me on Accutane. It's the most serious drug you can take for acne. So my lifestyle cleared up my skin dramatically, which is great. I had plantar fasciitis. So as a competitive tennis player, that was frustrating. It's a painful condition in the arches of your feet. I wore these big blue boots at night to do some passive stretching. That was in high school. Making this lifestyle change, that went away. I mean, it's so amazing to think about how the food I was eating, in fact, impacted pain in the arches of my feet. But it makes sense when you think about it. The food you're eating is the nourishment for every cell in your body. And yeah, it affects your eyes, it affects your hands, it affects your feet. So that went away. I used to get sick every year. I would take Nasonex and Claritin D and still get sick. And eventually I changed my lifestyle and I don't get sick. Like, it just doesn't happen. And I don't take any allergy medications. So that went away. I had warts on my feet. That went away. So those are some basic standard American symptoms I experienced. And now the biggest change for me was my improvement in insulin sensitivity. And that was the whole insight that really like changed the course of my life, and going to read research and be like, wait a minute, this isn't just me. This has been known for a long time. But the point is that as a type 1, as a person living with type 1 diabetes, I get to see my insulin sensitivity meal by meal. Chef AJ, a lot of you listening, you don't know how much insulin your pancreas secreted after any given meal. You're just not sure. You don't have that data. We can assess your insulin sensitivity in other ways, but you don't have that objective, actual insulin sensitivity metric. I do. So I get to know how much insulin did I inject, how many grams of carbohydrate did I consume, and what was my blood glucose profile, the entire profile. Every 5 minutes, I get my dots on my phone. And that experience of being able to eat 10 times, 12 times, 15 times more carbohydrate than any diabetes organization would ever recommend, and use less total insulin, and experience, I have an A1C of 5.4%, time in range of 90%. Like, my numbers are sensational. And I use a physiologically normal amount of insulin. A normal healthy human pancreas is going to secrete somewhere between like 25 and 50 units of insulin per day. I am using 27 units on average and eating over 700 grams of carbohydrate. That level of insulin sensitivity is truly unheard of, and a lot of people don't even really believe it, that's possible. I remember many, many years ago, I was on a forum, and they literally just like this guy's just making it up. Like, that was before I could have like Instagram, and it's so easy to prove the truth. But It's mind-boggling to people. And then the insight of understanding, okay, wait a minute. If I can understand how to optimize insulin sensitivity, how to make insulin work more efficiently, that means we literally have the answer to over 110 million people's condition of pre-diabetes and type 2 diabetes, because it's caused by insulin resistance. That's not the cause of type 1. We don't know the cause of type 1 and type 1.5. Insulin resistance can still be present in all of us, and that can lead to an increased risk for chronic disease, but we don't know the cause. But literally, this book and what I experience in my own body every single meal, every time I eat every day, I'm literally sitting here experiencing the solution to an epidemic in our country. You know, what's funny is I think we're talking so much about flattening the curve for this COVID-19 situation. I'm all about let's start flattening the diabetes curve, because then the rate of people, children, adults with getting diagnosed with all forms of diabetes is just going up, 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 up. Like, I would love to see that curve to start flatten and then go down. So anyways, that's my long story there to answer a simple question.
You know, I just had a marketing idea for you. You know, maybe like there could be like a station we could just log into your glucose meter all day. I'd watch it from, you know.
Theoretically, I can do that. I could.
I think it'd be kind of fun.
It wouldn't be that difficult, technically.
GS says, will you please ask Robby if he's seen the next generation Dexcom 7? It almost sounds like a show.
No, I've heard about it. I heard it's actually smaller and thinner, and I'm super happy to continue to see this technology progress. Maybe I can convince them to send me an early version or something.
Melissa says, is this book useful for somebody without diabetes? I said yes, but I'll let you answer.
100%. I mean, we did a whole podcast tour promoting this book, over 45 different podcasts, and we continuously heard from host after host, like, you guys should call this Mastering Everything, because, and it's not, it sounds like a ridiculous statement, but the book is all about explaining to you, the reader, how insulin sensitivity impacts a laundry list of conditions, including heart disease, cancer, kidney disease, fatty liver disease, neuropathy, retinopathy, Alzheimer's disease, PCOS, low energy. Like, the list goes on and on of when you are living with insulin resistance, you increase your risk of experiencing one or more of those. And when you learn how to optimize your insulin sensitivity, all of a sudden it starts to magic. Your body heals magically. Your body does not heal selectively. That's what I'm trying to say. When you start eating well, it's not just like, oh, like, I'm going to do this, I'm just going to fix my A1C. I'm just going to lower my blood glucose. It's like, no, this whole system starts to operate in a much more efficient and healthy, happy way. And all these other problems go away. High cholesterol just goes away. Like, obesity starts to, weight just starts falling off. I mean, Chef AJ is the queen of teaching us this whole thing. Like, it's just, it's profound. So majority of health issues that people have can be brought back to insulin resistance. And this whole book is about how to eliminate insulin resistance from your life.
That sounds great. All right. Last question. So we don't necessarily talk about it this way when we talk about our programs, but at least you and I, we don't eat sofas, what I call sofas. We don't eat sugar, meaning processed sugar. We eat fruit. We don't eat any kind of oils. Maybe we'd have whole food fats. We don't have any kind of flours. We don't have alcohol, and we don't have salt. Mm-hmm. And you don't go around saying that, but your diet, it doesn't include any of those things.
That's right. That's right. I love that term. It's really funny. But yeah, I personally don't eat any of those things. I think, from the Dr. McDougall's work and, the Forks Over Knives popularizing a lot of that work and all that, like, salt isn't the worst of things. It's a good idea to get it out if you can, but boy, everything else you listed, like get away from them, really. I mean, flour, first one was processed sugar. Okay. Out, done. Nobody's going to argue about that. Oil, out. Then F was flour. Yeah. Flour, like, that's problematic for people living with diabetes. Flour is going to be a problem. Okay. For calorie density and for blood glucose management, just take it out. Alcohol. So alcohol, nobody is going to tell you is really, again, I did a lot of research on this for the book as well. And even of the researchers who wrote, large scale publications, have been like, oh, alcohol might be okay for your heart and stuff like that. None of them concluded their paper by saying you should add alcohol in order to improve your health. Nobody. They kind of find a way to be like, oh, well, maybe a little bit's okay, but nobody's saying it's healthy. So keep it out. And salt, I mean, if you have to have it, if you have to add flavor, I think celery salt is a great place to try and start to diminish your need for added salt.
Yeah, that's terrific. How do you slip under the radar undetected by, what I mean by that is we basically eat the same diet. Yes, yours is raw, mine has cooked and a little bit of starch. But people are always saying to me, like, I make it so difficult. My diet makes it so difficult for people to be vegan. But my diet and your diet are what Mastering Diabetes teach, as far as I can tell, the same diet. So is it because it's just because you guys are guys and they don't rag on you? I mean, like, do you know what I'm saying? I don't hear people saying, oh, Robby Barbaro is making it so difficult for everybody to be vegan. And I get that all the time.
That's a funny question, Chef AJ. Here's the deal. Even, this is my personal opinion, how I handle such things. Even if people were saying things like that, honestly, even negativity in general, like, I listen to people's feedback. I care about people's feedback. Like, we're going to adjust and learn on that. I always listen. But I'm never going to let any of that stuff ever bring me down or upset me. It's like, I am very clear on what we're here to do, this mission we have of how many people we can help, how many people need our help, that nothing is going to derail this train. And we are going to keep on sharing evidence-based information that we know works. We're going to keep sharing testimonial after testimonial. We're going to keep sharing recipes. We're going to keep writing articles. We're going to keep doing interviews with amazing people like you. And we're just going to spread positivity. And people who want that and want to participate in that, come join the club. If you don't, I ignore you. Like, I don't have no time for it. I'm out.
Yeah. I want to be more like Robby when I grow up. Okay, I've kept him long enough, but I will ask this, and this will be the very last question. What are your thoughts on an all potato diet with no greens?
I've seen Jeff Novick write about this. I remember when I worked at Forks Over Knives, we published an article about some guy who was like the head of the Idaho Potato Organization or something. And he did it, and his fasting blood glucose went down. And he had all this amazing blood work improvement. I know SpudFit, Andrew Taylor, has done this for like a year or 2 years, and now he helps people. I think I wouldn't recommend it for a long-term solution. I think the way Andrew Taylor teaches it is it's a way to get in touch with your cravings and your feelings and emotions around food. So it could be like a cleansing experience. So in that regard, I think if you're coming at it with the right mental space, I think it's great. I think it's fantastic. But if there's some mental disturbance there, I know there's a lot of stuff, you know more about this than me, Chef AJ, about like, eating disorders and things like that. Somebody might be bringing in that mentality into that type of experiment, and that could be problematic. So you hopefully have a practitioner or a friend or a colleague or somebody who could sort of sense that and be like, maybe that's not the best way for you to be making lifestyle change right now. But assuming somebody comes into it with the right mental space and they're doing it for a certain period of time, not a lifetime, I think that would be great. I mean, it's more about what you're not eating in a lot of these cases. I think that's the one thing that's forgotten about in this whole conversation. When people get a little lost in like specific foods, it's like, man, what you're not eating is a game changer. And when you're eating just potatoes, you're getting a lot of fiber, a lot of vitamins, a lot of minerals, a lot of water content, and you're not eating a lot of junk.
Right. I just worry about when people remove vegetables, especially greens, especially after listening to, I think, 24 interviews on Mastering Raw Food Summit, because all the experts agree that greens are so important. So to take them out for any reason does not make sense to me.
I would agree with 100%. I mean, long term, again, it would have to be some weird experiment or interesting trial that somebody's trying to do, but I cannot agree more about the importance of greens and non-starchy vegetables and how I personally eat them every single day.
Right. Well, Linda Middlesworth says you're adorable, and I think so too. So thank you for what you do, because you allow me to do what I do, because I can say, well, Robby does it.
That's great. Thank you so much for having me on, Chef AJ. It's great to see you.
It's been a pleasure. And thank you guys for being here. Please come back tomorrow when at 11 a.m. I'll be interviewing Tom Glazer and his book, Full Heart Living. At 1 p.m., a wonderful cooking demonstration with the low-fat herbivore, Jocelyn Gray. Thanks again, Robby. Take care.
See ya.